You are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the August 19th regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Board. Harold, would you please read the roll call?
Councilwoman Gonzalez. Present. Councilman Dees.
Present.
Councilwoman Ogilvy.
Here.
Councilman Bradley.
Here.
Supervisor Van.
Present, please.
My apologies. My apologies.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So this morning we have one public hearing, which will be followed by a public portion, and then we'll have resolutions. But before we get started, we have a very special day today because we have with us the girls G10U All-Stars District Champs, and be giving proclamations out. We're very thrilled to have all you girls here with us, and congratulations on your win. Very exciting. Whereas East Hampton Little League organizes baseball and softball in the town of East Hampton, teaching boys and girls the values of teamwork and baseball skills. Whereas the girls 10U team played the District 36 tournament against Eastport South Manor and North Shore Little Leagues. And whereas the East Hampton All-Stars won the tournament to become the District 36 champions, therefore, be it proclaimed that the town of East Hampton Town Board hereby congratulates the 2021 championship team. Cadence Page, are you here, Cadence? Come on. Yes.
Just stand up here.
Ella Field.
I'll hold you girls in.
Ella. Jackie Gary. Alexa Schaefer. Mob Tupper. I should be so on. I've been fighting this first. Fallon Citraloza. Dylan Citraloza. Peyton Prado. Caroline Pepe. Ella Asagna. Allison Ray. Altina Balducci. Coach Jeff Tupper. Whitney Redlinger. Mark Asagna.
Justin Gearing.
Justin Gearing.
Ellie Redlinger is on here as well. No.
Yeah. I have one thing to say to you, girls. Excuse me. I'm Bree's dad. I don't know if he's remembering. I'm the guy that probably yells, cheers for you, calls your name out, and you don't know who I am on field loudly. We are all Little League parents here behind you. We support everything you did on the field. As a dad, a spectator, and a fan of yours, your season this year was terrific to watch. The way that you got better throughout the season, you listened to your coaches, you listened to your parents, you listened to yourselves. It was inspirational. Honestly, it truly was. The games that you played, you dominated in the playoffs, and congratulations to that. You never gave up. You worked hard as a team, and it was admirable. And speaking for myself, the supervisor feels the same. He's a former Little League coach. It was inspiring. I thank you for myself, and I thank you for the town. And it's great to see you again.
I think it deserves a standing ovation.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I just want to say that I think, what you all achieved, you did working together as a team. And that will suit you very well in life. We can accomplish great things when we work together. So that's a really important life lesson. I hope you carry that with you. It's really terrific. Thanks for really, representing your town very well. We're very proud of you. Thank you all.
Let's hear up here, please, just on behalf of the coaching staff, to work with these girls they compete against each other, the way Little League starts, and to watch them come together as a team, representing all Little League teams, and get together and really honing on teamwork and grit and determination. They had it from day one. We traveled for the July weekend up to Eastport, and to witness them come together, and had a 1-0 lead in a rainstorm. I mean, it was coming out sideways. To pause the game and then come back focused and determined. They had it in their mindset to get it going. Then we came home to these fields over here. We went down 3-0, and it was nothing to these girls. They came right back 3-3, and then the bats came out and the defense came alive. But it's their teamwork and coming together to work together was just something special to say. So thank you, girls. This is all on you.
Congratulations. We also are very pleased now. Town crier, Hugh King. Hugh?
They want to go first? They'd like to listen. You guys are just not even minutes.
All right, girl. Hugh King, our town crier.
Hi.
Welcome you.
We've been talking about newspapers, and we've been talking about Sag Harbor. And I believe the supervisor has a report on someone special who used to live in Sag Harbor. We've talked about Fanny Tunison. We've talked about Mrs. Russell Sage. We talked about Joseph Fahey. We talked about Polly Sweat. And now the supervisor is going to be talking about a man named William Wallace Tooker. I believe you are, Mr. Speaker.
I am, in fact,
Okay,
Hugh.
go.
Thank you. And you mentioned Mrs. Russell Sage, who is Margaret Olivia Sage. And she was involved in a very important way with William Wallace Tooker at the end of his life. He was born in 1848 and he lived until 1917, spent his entire life in Sag Harbor. At the age of 5, he began collecting Native American artifacts. And by 1895, it consisted of nearly 15,000 different items, one of the largest collections in the United States at the time. Immediately following his 18th birthday, he joined William Booth as a pharmacist apprentice in Sag Harbor. And by 1869, before just, I guess 4 years later, he became the assistant to his grandfather as a painter, portrait painter. That didn't last too long, and he went back to the pharmacy, became a full partner, married Leah Byram Cartwright, and became owner of the pharmacy about 3 years later. For more than 2 decades, he was engaged in research and wrote numerous essays and books about the Algonquin language and the tribes that inhabited the Atlantic Coast region, became a respected authority within intellectual circles, and his best known writings was a book called The Indian Place Names of Long Island, where he identified 486 places on Long Island and their original place names in the Algonquin language, and contributed, I think, 99 words to an appendix. The Algonquin language was widely used throughout the coastal region of the United States by the indigenous peoples, but it's a language that much of which has slipped away. He also was a very good friend of Stephen Talkow Sparrow, who also lived here, and it's the name of the local nightclub, Stephen Talkhouse, is named after him. And he's also very well known for the photographs that he took. Beginning in the 1880s, he took mostly landscape and building photographs, some vessels as well, number of ships. And 80 of those original photographs still remain to this date, although 8 were destroyed at the Peter Beard windmill fire in 1977. These are some of the earliest photographic records of Eastern Long Island. I invite you to look them up online. They're really amazing when you look at the places that you can see today, whether it's the Hook Mill or views across Lake Montauk. Very, very different. Very few trees at that time, mostly open pasture. It's pretty remarkable. Where Margaret Olivia Sage comes in, she was the widow of Russell Sage, who was a financier and a railroad investor, who was also the director of the Union Pacific Railroad. At the time, the Transcontinental Railroad was being put into place, and had a number of business dealings with Jay Gould. And that's what I have.
You see, I gave each one of the town board members an assignment, and they all did it. So if you have any more assignments for them, please contact them. And they'd be glad to take care of you. William Wallace Tooker also had, as the supervisor mentioned, he had a book with Indian place names in it. And you know what one of the names was? Panago, where you play. Okay? Now, the other thing I'm going to talk about, then you can, I'll leave you, is newspapers. Sag Harbor had over 15 different newspapers in its history. Some of them adults devoted to gossip and slander. But the first newspaper on Long Island, all of Long Island, started in Sag Harbor. It was called the Long Island Herald, and it started in 1791. And the paper only lasted 8 years because it was running out of paper. The paper was just like the early newspapers of the East Hampton Star. Most of the stories were not about Sag Harbor. They were about other places. And the only thing that had anything to do with Sag Harbor in the newspaper were advertisements. And you can see copies of that newspaper if you go to the East Hampton Library. Well, the man who came here to run the paper was a man named David Frothingham. But when the paper stopped being published in 1798, he wound up in Bridgehampton for a rally for the election of 1800 for Thomas Jefferson. Why they were having a rally for Thomas Jefferson in Bridgehampton, I have no idea. And why did Mr. Frothingham go there? I still have no idea. But he met a man named Aaron Burr who told him to come into New York City to help run a newspaper. So in he goes. He publishes a letter in the newspaper that was very critical of a man named Alexander Hamilton. Mr. Hamilton sued the newspaper, but he didn't sue the owner of the paper. He sued Mr. Frothingham, who had nothing to do with writing the article. And in fact, the article was published someplace else, and he just reprinted it. Mr. Frothingham goes to jail, and we never hear from him again. And that's the first newspaper on Long Island. And the last thing I want to leave you with, everybody should know this. This year, the village of East Hampton is celebrating its 100th anniversary. It was started in 1920, but they couldn't do it last year because of the pandemic. But there's going to be a series of events on September 24th, 25th, and 26th. So look in the local papers for that, because I know you want to be part of that. And I'm going to the village board meeting tomorrow, and I will have the itinerary sent to the assistant to the supervisor, and then she'll get it to the rest of the board members so you can be aware of it. And maybe I'm going to ask them if you could be part of it someplace, because remember, the town started along the village green, which is in the village right now in 1648. That's all I have. Thanks for listening. Do your homework.
Thank you so much, Hugh. And girls, you're welcome to stay for the entire meeting if you like. But if you don't want to, this might be a good time to say goodbye. Again, congratulations.
Thank
Bye, girls.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, girl. Good job. Run for office.
He says it runs for office. Good job, girls. Carol, would you read the first hearing notice, first and only hearing notice?
Notice of the town board of the town of East Hampton held a public hearing on Wednesday, August 19th at 11 a.m.
Go to a public session.
As soon thereafter, this matter may be heard on a proposed local
We'll
law.
go to a
providing
public
for the
session.
adoption Of a revised community preservation plan pursuant to section 64E, the New York Town Law, which provides for the preservation of open space, historic places, and recreational areas within the town of East Hampton, including the incorporated villages therein, all as more fully set forth in the text of the local law.
Thank you, Carol. Is there anyone signed up? Just, we
We
have
have
Brian Frank here. Brian, are you here to give us a brief introduction on the? Yes. Thank you.
Good morning, Supervisor Van Square, members of the town board, Brian Frank, environmental analyst in the planning department. We had discussed the,
Closer to the mic.
I'm sorry, masks, I guess. We had discussed the update of the community preservation project plan a few weeks ago at a work session, and now it's ready for public hearing. This is an update of the CPF plan. It really consists of primarily minor revisions to the text, a certain refinement of the habitat description, an update of the conserved acreage, both open space, agricultural, and a significant portion of the update was the addition of the water quality parameters that were incorporated into the CPF law a few years ago. The update was worked on by myself, Scott Wilson, and Melissa Winslow of the Natural Resources Department, largely over the course of 2019, with a few socially distant updates in 2000. It also includes an updated list of acquisition or conservation candidates, which is an important, and it's actually a mandatory component of the law, is to maintain a list of candidates for either acquisition or other conservation recommendations. But it is also important to point out that as much as I have been a part over the years of literally combing through the town parcel by parcel, it really is difficult, if not impossible, to capture every single property that is a worthy candidate of acquisition or conservation by adding it to a black and white list. It would really be just too labor consumptive and exhaustive a process to do that. So despite the thoroughness of the list and the evaluation process that I've had the privilege of working with the advisory board for a long time over the years. You really have a great group of members of the community, citizens, who volunteer their time, spend a lot of time poring over the evaluations that are prepared by the planning department, and in many cases visiting the properties in person, listening to guest speakers that come into the advisory board meetings to give the town board thoughtful recommendations about the merits of any given property for conservation measures. Our evaluation form is fairly comprehensive. We look at contiguity with open space. We look at the quality of the habitat, its vulnerability to flooding, erosion, the quality of agricultural land when that's applicable, its contiguity with other ag land, its contiguity with open space, trail consideration, historic value, and really try to cover everything that the CPF law makes a property a candidate to be used for. And that's the plan. That's the subject of today's public hearing. As an example, there is a property that has been identified as a candidate to amend the plan, which periodically I'll have to do. As I mentioned, there's really no list that can capture everything, and periodically, based on new information or a more focused look at a property, there are going to be times periodically where it's appropriate to amend the plan to add a property. And that's the case of the Aiken property in Montauk. This is the property is a 7-acre property that is located on Foxborough Road. It is both a good open space acquisition candidate and has historic significance. This was the house that Carl Fisher, bless you, designed and built, and it is on the register or eligible for the Register of Historic Places. Obviously, everybody on this board and most people in the community know the name of Carl Fisher and how he was the considered the architect of Montauk and really a pioneer in the development of the Montauk community. This is a 7-acre property that is contiguous to surrounding open space. It's in the town's water recharge overlay district. And again, it's a historic building that dates back to the early 20th century. And the planning department would agree. The advisory board has looked at this a couple of times over the year, and it's a worthy candidate to amend the plan for its inclusion. If anybody has any questions, board members or members of the public, I'm happy to answer them.
I just have one. In addition to adding the Aiken property, I would also propose adding 21 Mushmore Lane to the CPF project plan. The town acquired these 3 parcels from the Dayton property directly adjacent to Herald Park. At the time, the town also acquired the rights of first refusal for a 4th property, which is 21 Mushmore Lane, tax number 301-2-2-35. In order to pursue the acquisition of this last parcel in conjunction with the village, the parcel needs to be added to the CPF project plan, which I think is appropriate right now. Although the property is currently developed, if acquired, the structures will be removed following some expansion of the park. So I would propose adding that.
Thank you. I would just add and re-emphasize what Brian said about this not being an all-inclusive plan, and we should consider it a living document that is open for amendment when parcels of significance come to our attention that are not within the plan. And that has been our practice to date, and I'm sure that will continue going forward. So it should be considered an all-inclusive list of properties that the town would consider acquiring. And there are obviously criteria and a list of merits upon which we generally base these decisions, and a review board that also looks at them and ranks them prior to.
All participants are muted.
My apologies.
Okay, we'll move on then.
I think that was my wife.
That was a hook.
That was the hook. So Carol, we do have a sign-up sheet. We have Jane Marion. Thank you, Brian. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Jane Mearing. I'm a resident of Amagansett. And in addition to the comments that I'm going to try to be very brief to offer here today, I have submitted some more in-depth written comments that provide more background and substantiation of my opinions and suggestions I'm going to offer today. So needless to say, I'm addressing the board to offer comments as part of this public hearing regarding the East Hampton Town Community Preservation Project Plan of 2021. In particular, today, I would like to pose the 2 questions. Number 1, is the area of Beach Hampton within Amagansett underrepresented in this new CPS project plan? And related to that, number 2, is it possible to make a request to reevaluate and reconsider the whole area? I'm not coming today with specific parcels to suggest. Before I dive in, I want to note that I am a property owner in Beach Hampton. I love it. So I can see how possibility that someone might interpret something I'm going to say as serving only my self-interests. But I really want to say that my comments and thoughts are trying to come from the perspective of the broader community interests and East Hampton preservation overall. So I expressed my keen interest in the document. I have deep appreciation for the extensive and intensive analysis that went into it by so many as well as the extraordinary effort that I know it will take to, in the years ahead, to oversee and execute. I also appreciate, as was just talked about, that Land Management Committee and Planning Department and Board use rigorous and structured process based on a defined set of criteria. So I'm not here today to make criticism of the plan. Anyone who reads this plan should be absolutely giddy at the prospect of all of it, or even a part of it, being executed over the next coming years. And yet I am here today to ask for just a little bit more. I read the entire 300-page document. I'll admit I skimmed the Sag Harbor portion, and I reviewed the full list of, I think, what were about 700 plus target parcels that were recommended across East Hampton. But I did notice that within Amagansett, 2 areas are virtually excluded from the plan and the document. Number one is the lanes, and the other is Beach Hampton and Amagansett. I am not going to talk about the lanes today. So, and just to review, I am defining Beach Hampton as the developed area that runs from Bluff Road and 27, about 2 blocks deep to the Atlantic Ocean, bounded at the west by Beach Avenue and at the east by Gilbert Path. So just to make that clear, that's what I'm talking about. So I just want to present a reasoned case about my ask and suggestion, because it does appear underrepresented, even though looking at all the area's characteristics and challenges, to me, it appears to align very closely with many of the characteristics and priorities articulated specifically in this report. Here are some points. Number one, Beach Hampton is truly a unique, one-of-a-kind, and irreplaceable beach community within East Hampton that contributes greatly to sense of place in Amagansett and East Hampton. The area, which contains many sensitive parcels, is a significant area of scenic character and natural distinction, resulting from a unique alchemy of the elements of the neighborhood. Number two, reading section 1, I note that the natural features of Beach Hampton appear consistent with core areas of concentration articulated in the plan. Specifically, the area includes and is defined completely by 2 of the 7 areas outlined: wetlands, freshwater, as well as dunelands and beach. In addition, Beach Hampton appears to contain a preponderance of the precious vegetation that is generally associated with moorlands that is described. Number 3, of the 15 priority characteristics enumerated for investment of the CPF to acquire, Beach Hampton seems to represent 7 of them across 3 of the 4 stated priorities for preservation categories. Point 4, looking at this section of the plan, land recommended for acquisition and protection that had been used as a basis for evaluating each parcel proposed. Beach Hampton appears to be consistent with 3, if not 4 of those. Point 5, Beach Hampton water quality issues are significant. Looking at it in the context of the WQIP mandate, I recognize that Beach Hampton is not currently in an official water recharge overlay or a harbor protection overlay. I don't think it has a special groundwater protection area designation, yet given the extensive wetlands, the aging septics, and the depth of groundwater, the shallow depth of groundwater, it seems consistent with this mandate. Beach Hampton, number 6, Beach Hampton is an area of historical significance in East Hampton. It does not have a state or a federal designation or local. However, I'm going to make the case that it is. The area is approaching its 100th anniversary of its founding and establishment. And secondly, the area contains a great deal of mid-century modern vernacular in its architecture, including some very special sort of pedigreed examples. Number 7, the special and challenging development characteristics of Beach Hampton. The entirety of Beach Hampton is being zoned as B residence, but many of the lots are much smaller. I think I'm guessing there are about 500 lots that comprise Beach Hampton. I think perhaps only 24 buildable parcels are unimproved. Overall, this area has been overdeveloped and is now at serious risk of being overbuilt. Number 8, the wetlands in the area are expanding, water table is rising, and duneland is disappearing, which leads to number 9. Landscaping activity has become much more of a threat in the area. I see wetlands being graded and filled in and obscured. I see dunes being excavated and landscaped with all kinds of ornamentals, and a lot of more installation of lawns and sod, and an enormous amount of irrigation that has a lot of impact on dunes and wetlands. And number 10, finally, overall, Beach Hampton has become very vulnerable to accelerating an additional unwise development. The area has been discovered by very big money folks, speculative developers. We combine that with an aging homeowner base and an aging housing stock. And I can see this area slipping away pretty fast and pretty quickly in the next 5 years. Lastly, Beach Hampton is contiguous. It sits in between, it interrupts the precious preserved areas of Double Dunes, as well as the preserve in Neck Beach. And so I think that also should be considered. Therefore, I respectfully ask the board and the committee might further evaluate and reconsider the CPF Plan's acquisition and protection target list, and if it should include more parcels within this small but significant community. It won't be enough. CPF will never be enough to, quote, save an area like Beach Hampton or other similar ones, but I do indeed think it should be looked at as an important arrow in the quiver. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. And of course, we always are open to suggestions from the general public about any parcel they think should be acquired, and we'll certainly entertain those.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak on the CPF project plan update? Hello, Joe. How are you?
My name is Joseph Giannini. I'm a resident of East Hampton.
Are you here to speak about this hearing?
I'm here to speak about systemic police misconduct.
Okay, if you would just wait, sir, until just let me close the hearing and then we'll get to public comment. Okay. Is there anyone else who wants to speak about the CPF project plan update?
We have
we have
one caller
line.
on the line. Yes.
We check to see if they're here to speak about this public hearing, CPF project plan.
Doing that right now. Hello, caller ending 8764. Oh, hello.
Good morning. Yes, I am calling in to speak on this specific hearing. This is David Buddha. Good morning.
Good morning, David.
Everyone. All righty. By the way, the audio quality is better than it had been in the past, but it's still only good, not great. I'd like to speak on this hearing. As I understand it from the presentation today by Mr. Frank, whose work I always greatly appreciate for its thoroughness and comprehensiveness, and at the work session, I think about 2.5 weeks ago, this has been a 2-year project of updating the CPF plan, which was last comprehensively adopted in 2011, and with 2 major additions being the Montauk and Springs outreach projects, which are now being incorporated. This is a major guiding planning document, and the public has been given 2 weeks to digest the 300-page document, evaluate it, and make comments, which frankly is not enough for a project of this significant moment. What I find lacking, first of all, is I have heard not one mention that in addition to the planning department specialists, that this list, this proposed what should be comprehensive and nearly all-inclusive amendment to the project plan, I have not heard one word mentioned that it was submitted to the CPF Advisory Board for their review, comment, and suggestions. In fact, I watch on a monthly basis the minutes of the CPF Advisory Board meeting, the public portion, and it has never been mentioned. I wonder whether or not it was done. If it wasn't, it should have been done. And the public members, who are all selected because of some expertise to serve on the CPF Project Advisory Board, could well have reached into their collective consciousness and experience and identified additional worthy candidates. To have the hearing, and at the hearing, have the speaker, the presenter, and Mr. Lease already suggest that it's out of date and needs amendment, shows you that you need to not adopt this plan today, but you need to give the public more opportunity to digest it, to review it, to consider it. Absolutely give the CPF Advisory Board an opportunity to review it, comment, and before you adopt it, make sure that it is as comprehensive and all-inclusive as the public and the experts that work for the town can possibly present. Every time you adopt every time you would consider a new parcel for acquisition and at the same time are forced to consider adopting an amendment to the project plan is a suspect activity. It should be dubious, it should be disfavored, and it should not happen often. Now, there may be some special, unique situations, but it should not be a matter of course, as it has been for the past 5 or 6 years, that nearly every project, every proposal to acquire property, especially those that have improvements, and even some such as on Broadview Road in Amagansett that are vacant, they should come up not because of deliberate planning, expertise, review, but rather because an owner or a neighbor has a reason to suggest that it be purchased by the town, sometimes as a purchaser of last resort, and that's not the way the Cpf plan and system was designed to be. Now, I'm not that familiar with Beach Hampton. The prior speakers seem to be very knowledgeable, seem to make some very pointed and worthwhile suggestions that Mr. Frank and his team should go back and take a look at. I know that my brief, and I haven't finished my review of the 300-page document, frankly. My brief review showed that it was most of the updates were focused on the addition of the water quality improvements, which is something new that is on the table and part of the program to the extent of 20% that came about after the last major adoption of the project plan. So obviously that is all new and all important and all necessary. But it really is incumbent upon the planning staff and the Cpf Advisory Board to make an all-out effort to be as comprehensive, as thorough, and as exhaustive as possible so that you are not in a situation in the future where some realtor or some neighbor or some stranger comes up and whispers in your ear, figuratively speaking, buy my property, and you say, oh, gee, it's not on the list. We'll be happy to consider it anyway. That should rarely, if ever, happen in the future. And then those are my comments for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Do we have any other callers on the line?
We currently have no other callers on the line.
Anyone else wish to address us on the CPF project plan update? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. We'll now move on to the public portion of the meeting. And I believe, Mr. Girardi, you wanted to address the board? Giannini, sorry. Very sorry. You could just state your name for the record.
Joseph Giannini. Try to avoid trying to follow along. You want it?
Do you have an extra? Mr. Chair, you might want to give one to the clerk.
Clerk.
Again, my name is Joseph Giannini. I'm a longtime resident of East Hampton. I think some of you might know me. I'm a retired criminal defense attorney for over 40 years. I retired because I was forced to retire from service-connected disabilities. I have a show that I host called Town Hall. What I'm really here about is the board's attempt to interfere with my freedom of speech, my freedom to petition, and my freedom of press. Last Thursday at 4:58 p.m., I received a letter from outside counsel. I know this guy. I've seen him one time, Mark A. Rady. He's from Suckalov and Stern. And the message was that I had been attempting to speak to board members about the Cuthbert case. And he didn't want me to do that. He only wanted me to address him. Now let's get this straight. I do not represent William Cuthbert. I was a trial attorney when he was tried here in East Hampton in 2014. He's had the assistance of Fred Oberlander, who's a great attorney for a brief period, and now he's pro se in front of the United States of America Court of Appeals. That's where he is. And the case might be on the way to the Supreme Court. And it all started here. And if you don't know anything about it, you better find out fast. Because it's a classic case of police misconduct, prosecutorial misconduct, judicial misconduct. And then when a man tries to get justice, the federal courts are using a technical thing to stop him. And this has all been happening for 7 years. I'm so concerned about getting that email from Mark A. Rady that I have an attorney here, Jim Henry. He's going to address you. He's a civil rights lawyer. I did not respond to that email. It's ridiculous to tell someone you can't speak to the board. You're our local government. And in fact, I've only spoken to one person. I've never been before the board about the Cuthbert case. I have written letters to the Star, which he calls our little paper. And he was foreseeing that I might write another letter to the Star, and guess what? Today it's there in the Star. And David gave it the name Rigged System. And if you don't know anything about this, the public has to know. In this town, a man was arrested for cursing at a police officer. He was prosecuted. That's all it was. And he was tried. And over again, his first counsel, Patrick Gunn, tried to tell the court he has not been charged with any crime. It's not illegal or unlawful to curse, first of all, and not even at a police officer. That's not a public nuisance. He was railroaded through our criminal justice system. He was convicted. And then it was reversed on appeal. Now, he paid for all his attorneys up until that point. He paid that out of pocket. Judge Tukolsky, when I queried him, like, what do you think is going on here? His response was, well, he cursed in public and there were people that could hear him. That's not what happened. He had a conversation with Officer Trotter. They were by themselves on Acrobatic Road by the Engravens Pit. There was no one there. But this cop, I don't know if he's stupid or he just thinks he can get away with it. He arrested him for cursing at him. And guess what? The prosecution went with that. And believe me, Mr. Gunn tried to get the case dismissed. And Judge Tukolsky wouldn't listen. Over and over again. And so did I when I came in to try the case. It was a disgrace. And he got convicted here in East Hampton for cursing. And he didn't curse at the cop until he was cuffed to the rear very painfully. So I'm giving you some context. And to have this guy, Mark Rady, I know things about him. I met him one time. He's not the kind of lawyer that I am. I don't work on the dime. I try to do the right thing. Mark Rady has never done the right thing by William Cuthbert. And I want to tell you, I was there when Mark Rady deposed him in this building. All day long, him and Janet, his witness, all day long. And at the end, I gave Mr. Rady our whole file because I knew if he read the trial transcript, he would say, oh my God, this guy never committed any crime. How could this, No. He wanted to litigate it. So who benefits? Who benefits? Well, Sutcliffe and Stern by the hour. And you and me are paying for it. He probably going to bill you for the email he sent me. I'm really angry. I mean, he must have been asleep when he read or studied the First Amendment in law school. It's an outrage to try to tell me that I can't speak to you.
Well,
Stop. Let me finish.
I'm sorry, I thought you were.
This case now is, like I said, it's up in the United States of America Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. And the railroading goes on, right through the federal court. They're trying to deny him a day in court or a day of justice. They won't do it. They're saying that he didn't get a favorable determination. Well, He went to trial and they proved he was innocent. Even the cops said he didn't cause a public nuisance. So what do we do here? Why don't we do something right? Call in Mr. Rady, call in the town attorney, have an executive session. This is a disgrace, and I'm not going to let it go. And this guy, Mark Rady, I didn't respond to anything he said. He started responding to other people that were emailing me. And he brought him into the case, Jim Henry. I did not respond to him. He doesn't understand the first thing about being a lawyer. Keep your mouth shut, you tell your clients. And you don't talk about cases. And I don't know how many on the board told him to do that. And certainly you do. And I want to know some other things, Joe, for the record. How long has this town been employing Sokoloff and Stern? And how much do they get paid by the hour? Because I've been up against them before. I'm very upset. I'm going to let my lawyer address you. Maybe you should learn more about the First Amendment, because it relates to what's going on right now in this town.
Thank you, John. Mr. Henry, do you wish to address the board?
Yes, please.
Morning. Well, obviously, my client here is
I'm sorry, could you just,
James S. Henry. I'm an attorney in Sag Harbor and a longtime ACLU cooperating attorney. This is not the first time I've represented Joe. 2006, we had a case in Southampton where the village of Southampton tried to throw the veterans against the war out of the 4th of July parade. We went into federal court, got an injunction against that, and ultimately ended up prevailing and forcing them to not only admit the veterans, but have a more rational and fair process for handling public protests and such demonstrations. But Joe is a passionate individual. I'm not familiar with the case details of the Cuthbert case. I've never met Mr. Cuthbert or talked to him. What I am concerned about here is the invocation inappropriately by outside counsel to the town of East Hampton of the so-called no contact rule under the New York RPC, the code of procedures that lawyers are supposed to follow. The actual rules are well described in a memo in an article that I brought with me, and I can copy you, which talks about how the First Amendment squares off against this rule. And it's a balancing test. The court has found, Supreme Court has found, that the appropriate case is where an attorney is representing a counsel and he makes a statement that involves a, quote, substantial likelihood of material prejudice in upcoming adjudication. There is no such adjudication pending. This board is a public agency. It's not a trial court. This attempt to use Rule 4.2 to basically channel all communications from Mr. Giannini through him is basically inappropriate. So we're in a time when we have enormous challenges in this country to the First Amendment. We also have lots of police misconduct. And I'm not familiar with this case, but I can tell you that the eastern end of Long Island is a place that we need to look much more carefully at that issue. And I just want to remind the town that we will be watching and carefully monitoring conduct here, and we want to see, as I believe you do, the First Amendment respected. Sag Harbor, my house of residence for the last 30 years, as you heard this morning, was one of the founding places in the United States for free speech, for newspapers, for journalism. And it has that proud tradition of writers critics and civil rights lawyers as well, who want to see this defended. So I respect your time and thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henry, and of course, we're always happy to hear directly. I'm sorry, Mr. If you could just let me comment, I'd appreciate that. We are always happy to hear from members of the public, regardless of what their views are or what the issue is. We've spent numerous hours in the recent weeks listening to the public, I think 3-4 hours at a time. That's our role here. That's part of what a democracy is really all about, is the cornerstone of that democracy, which is free speech.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
We appreciate your comments about that.
Thanks very much. And I think we're on the same page. Thank you.
Just to sum up again, I request an executive session, as you recall, and bring in Mr. Rady and Mr. Zalipke to talk about this case. It's a very important case. I am not the attorney of record anymore. He's on his own. So it's important to us as citizens. And so, and it's about that First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of petition, freedom of press. And that lawyer thinks that he could warn me or tell me, not me, not us.
Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks a lot.
Do we have any callers on the line, Jason?
Yes, we do. I will unmute now.
Thank you.
Good morning again. This is David Buda. I'd like to make some comments on two of the proposed resolutions that are on today's agenda. By the way, just in case you're not aware of it, the vast majority of today's resolutions did not appear on the publicly available agenda until this morning. So you certainly make it hard for people to keep up with what's going on. But I try my best. There are two items that I just wanted to clarify, address. One is Resolution 2021-958 from Councilwoman Overby. It has to do with a disposition of property that the town was given title to as part of a development that presumably received a density bonus under the Long Island Workforce Housing Act. That vacant property of 1.63 acres, I think it's along the road that goes past the airport, north of that. You're proposing to sell the land, increase the expenses the monies you need to market it, and then put those funds in the town's affordable housing fund. I frankly would like someone to address this and explain it. It's my understanding from the Long Island Workforce Housing Act that two things seem to be being disregarded. The intent was that the affordable housing that was created as a result of this increased density bonus and requirement for the developer to either pay fees or build on alternate land, affordable housing, that none of this, that what you're doing seems to be strictly under the four corners of the Act. The developer had an opportunity, if the town had an ordinance, to pay appropriate amount of fees in lieu, but that didn't happen. He or she, I don't even know who it was, deeded a property to the town. It was my obligation, my understanding of the Act that should not have been the end of the story, that rather, if that's how it was the obligation was going to be satisfied, that the affordable housing was supposed to be built on that property. That obviously didn't happen. And what you're planning to do now, after the fact, is sell the property, obviously take the best proceeds you can get and put it into the town-wide fund. So my question is whether or not this actually passes muster under the terms of the Long Island Workforce Housing Act, because the funds would not necessarily be used in Wainscott. No housing was actually built as a result of this development approval. And I'm just wondering whether or not someone has taken a close look at whether or not this proposed sale comports fully with the requirements and intent of the Long Island Workforce Housing Act. So when the time comes, when you consider that resolution, I appreciate some explanation of what's going on here. The second one is really just a technical matter. You have two resolutions. I missed the discussion at a work session a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, concerning the update on the, let's call it the beach access litigation, the White Sands and Seaview litigation. But I do notice that you have two resolutions on today's agenda to basically fund the additional legal expenses, which is fine. However, I'd like to point out that the resolution with respect to Mr. Ryken appears to have been, needs to be updated. It talks in terms of the case being in the appellate division on appeal, and frankly, you've gone past that. The appellate division case is over. As far as I know it, these cases only live today in the Court of Appeals, where you are the petitioner, and you are appealing, which is fine. And also, the cases live in the Supreme Court, which is the trial court, where there are pending motions for holding some of you or all of you in contempt, which, by the way, is totally without merit. So I think that you just need to review your language in Resolution 2021-967. It seems to be out of date and inapposite, as lawyers like to say. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Any other callers on the line?
We currently have no other callers on the line.
Okay. At this point, I believe we can move on with resolutions.
Okay. Start with resolution 2021-938. It's approval of the warrant. Claims total $4,219,873.26. And the utility warrant totals $49,453.59.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried.
2021-939 is to notice a public hearing to be held on September 2nd at 2 p.m. to consider the reposting of speed limit signs at Hog Creek Road for the length from Kings Point Road to Springs Fireplace Road to reduce the speed limit from 35 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 2021-940 is a budget modification for the Information Technology Department, removing $10,000 in full-time salaries in the A fund to overtime and $2,600 in the B fund from full-time salaries to overtime.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried.
2021-941 is to amend a special event permit for the Montauk Chamber of Commerce on movie night on the Montauk soccer field. The new dates are August 24th, August 31st, and September 7th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried.
I'd like to offer resolution 2021-942. This is Darby and Durrington, scheduling a public hearing for Cpf acquisition and amended 2021 management and stewardship plan. Proposed owner is Geraldine Darby and Georgia Durrington. Location is Wainscott Northwest Road, Wainscott. Tax map is 300-180-1-11. The proposed purchase price is $8,000. The public hearing will be held September 2nd, 2021 at 2 p.m. or thereafter.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried.
I'd like to offer resolution 943 to appoint seasonal lifeguard to the Recreation Department, Cameron Mitchell, at an hourly rate of $15.50 per hour, effective August 20th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried.
944, title change for lifeguards. For Fiona Denny, Ocean Lifeguard, $15.50 an hour, retroactive August 2nd, 2021. Rory Denny, Ocean Lifeguard, $15.50, retroactive to August 2nd, 2021. Haley Duca, Ocean Lifeguard, $15.50 an hour, retroactive August 2nd, 2021. James Kinsane, Ocean Lifeguard, $15.50, August 2nd, 2021, retroactive. Colin Schaefer, Advanced Ocean Lifeguard, $16, retroactive April 21st, 2021. And Peter Statcombe, Captain Lifeguard, $18.50, retroactive to August 2nd, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-945 is a water quality for 2020. This is the round one. This is for grant extension. Three locations or three applications that would be extending that grant would be the Sag Harbor Christ Episcopal Church project, the Wainscott Chapel project, and the Whalebone Village project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
946 is a CPF water quality budget modification, where we're going to be taking $454,000 from water quality improvement grants and bringing it to $239 to septic system rebate program, and then also to subcontract costs in the amount of $215,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
And also Resolution 2021-947 is the acceptance of donations for the Lars Science Skate Park, where Mr. and Mrs. Sam and Susie Britton have generously donated the sum of $100,000 to the town of East Hampton to be used specifically for the Lars Science Skate Park renovation. That donation is to be placed in the established reserve account.
We thank you for that generous donation. Do we have a second?
I'm seconding it.
All
Thank
in
you, Devin, as
favor?
well. Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
948 is a budget modification for aquaculture, taking $1,000 from part-time salaries to motor vehicles repairs.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
949 is budget modification for buildings and grounds, taking $14,100 from part-time salaries and bringing it to $6,400 to computer equipment, $5,600 to furniture and fixtures, $2,100 conference and dues.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
950 is a budget modification for highway department, taking $1,800 from line striping and bringing it to $1,800 for litter abatement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
951 is budget modification for the highway department, taking $362 for unemployment insurance expense and bringing that to dental and optical benefits in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
952 is authorized payments for pass-through invoices for Johnson Controls in the amounts of, for 2019, $296.23, $400 in 2020, $600 from 2020, $600 for 2020 for a different one, for a grand total of $1,896.23.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2021-953 is a waiver extension for the southern pine beetle tree debris. When the response to southern pine beetles infestation starting in 2027, the town is allowing individuals that contact Department of Land Acquisition and Management to inspect their property and get waivers from them for debris removal at the dump, and the waivers will be at the dump.
Second.
Carol, could you have a roll call vote, please?
Councilwoman Bertram Ross.
Aye.
Councilman Reese.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kennedy.
Aye.
Councilman Bradley.
I'd like to discuss this briefly since we're having a roll call vote. I intend to vote yes on this because I think it's a good idea to give property owners a waiver of fees for taking down pine beetles, infested trees. I do take some issue with the idea that it's still efficacious to continue to take down pine trees, other than pine trees that are hazardous to the homeowner. Having looked into it at length, talked to the Department of Land Management, I'm afraid that we are not in a very good position to stop this outbreak of pine beetles. And I'm not certain that this is going to be effective, but I certainly don't want to tell property owners. I know several who have stopped trying to take down infected trees, but are removing trees that are dead that pose a hazard to their homes. So I'm okay with giving a waiver. Not sure the language about encouraging people to take down the trees is effective at this point. And I think that's consistent with the DEC's position that they stated since last October.
Well, with regard to the advocacy, I think probably we should get an update on that specific issue so that people can be made aware of what the best science and what the current understanding is. I'm going to recuse myself. Looks like we have a majority.
I'm
You said
happy.
you were in favor of it.
Well,
So are
I
you
am, but
voting yes or no?
hold on, Peter, please. But I do not agree with the paragraph indicating that, encouraging people to take down the trees is going to be effective. And also, I have pine beetles as you do, so I think it's probably okay for me to abstain as well.
I'm not abstaining.
Abstain or recuse.
Well.
I'm okay with the language as it
I think I'll
stays.
abstain.
I'm going to recuse myself. So it sounds like we have a 3 yes, an abstention, and a recuse.
I'd like to offer resolution 2021-954, authorize payment of 2020 invoice to Highway Department. This is for $55.14 to Cintas.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried.
Resolution 955 is authorize emergency road repairs for Firestone Road, Malta.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried.
Resolution 2021-956 is the Louder grant of a scenic and conservation easement to schedule a public hearing. This is for Ron S. Louder, 2002 trust, Ron Louder managing member. It's a scenic and conservation easement at 118 Beach Lane, and the reviewing agency is the Zoning Board of Appeals. The public hearing is scheduled for Thursday, September the 2nd at 2 p.m. Remember, the first Thursdays are at 2 p.m. for our town board meetings.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, that's carried.
2021-957 is a reclassification and promotion for Danielle Paradin. The Suffolk County Department of Civil Service reviewed the duties and responsibilities of Danielle as a senior office assistant. So they're reclassified to the title of principal office assistant. Danielle she is hereby appointed to that title of principal office assistant with the planning department at an hourly rate of $27.57 per hour, or $57,352.05 annually for a 40-hour work week, to be paid biweekly from the B Fund budget account upon submission of time records, effective retroactive to August of 10th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried.
Resolution 2021 is 958, and 958 is an increase of fund line for the sale of property. The planning board issued a final subdivision for 55 Wainscott Hollow LLC for a subdivision of property. And the condition 22 of the final subdivision approval provides that the town should be provided with a title to a buildable parcel with the Wainscott School District for affordable housing purposes in a manner consistent with the Long Island Workforce Housing Act. The town, pursuant to this resolution at 2020-1004, accepted a deed dated October 8th for the premises at 3 Knoll Lane in Wainscott. To fulfill that condition 22, the town now wishes to sell the lot so as to achieve the largest return of value for the affordable housing program, and in a manner so as to obtain the highest possible sales price. The proceeds from the sale of the property will become part of the Community Housing Opportunity Fund. I would like to add in this whereas, just to make it clear that the Long Island Workforce Housing Act will be used for affordable housing in Wainscott. So it's just to be clear. You stated it at the beginning of the resolution, but just to be clear, I'd like to add that. It's resolving that payment of marketing expenses, surveys, and other costs will be taken from the Community Housing Opportunity Fund in the amount not to exceed $10,000. So the increase in revenue for the sale of real property by $10,000, and then increase expenses for outside professionals by $10,000. And resolve that the clerk is directed to forward a copy to Scott Wilson of Land Management and Tom Rule of the Office of Housing.
Is there a second?
Can we have?
Would like to have a discussion. If we had a caller, John,
Yes.
who expressed some concerns about the mechanism here, whether or not this would be in compliance with the Long Island Workforce Housing Act.
At the time, and this was a long process that spanned a couple of years on the applicant's part, trying to locate a piece of property that would work. This was ultimately the only property that they could find. Now, it was a condition of the approval, but my recollection is that it was that way. It was a condition because the owner or the applicant voluntarily offered to do this. I believe they had another maximum, they had an additional lot they could have done with in the subdivision based on the maximum yield calculations, but they didn't go with the, I think it was an 8 lot. They didn't take the 8 lot. They just went with 7, but still said, but we're going to still provide the town with this lot. So they looked for quite some time. They worked with the housing office trying to find something that was suitable, and ultimately this was the only property that they were able to locate. We did accept the lot only on the condition that it provided for us to resell it with the understanding that we would take those funds and utilize those for affordable housing in conformance with the Workforce Housing Act. So we weren't going to accept the deed without that condition, because at the time our housing office said, it's not probably an appropriate lot for housing because of its location, its size. It just wasn't conducive to housing. But in order for them to meet their condition and move on with their subdivision, we accepted this with that on those terms only.
Okay, so effectively, the owner voluntarily reduced his yield on the subdivision, and then this is another voluntary step.
Yeah, they reduced that. At least that was my understanding. They reduced the yield, but they still agreed to comply. So
the
since it was an offer,
you have to either provide housing within the subdivision, or you have to provide funds
or suitable property also within the same school district.
Correct.
Yeah.
And since we already have property that we'd acquired for affordable housing purposes, more appropriate a location, this would help to fund the development of that project.
Right.
Okay, well, I'm okay with relying on our attorney's advice.
It might have been better that had been explained in the whereas clauses so that it was, more easily understood.
Well, I'm glad we had this discussion and the David Buda comment.
I think if we'd gone back and attached resolution 2021-004, that also explained that we accepted the deed under those particular circumstances.
That's a key piece of information.
Right.
Missing.
Well, it's here. It's just not, the resolution is cited here. It's just not
Exactly.
for 2020.
The language isn't specifically spelled out.
Okay.
So we have a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's carried.
Resolution 959 is to accept a proposal from LA McLean Professional Services for solar roof feasibility report. This is for roofs at the former CDCH building, the sanitation department buildings, and it's required for determining the current feasibility for installing solar PV systems on those roof surfaces. The amount is going to be, for the completion, not to exceed $12,560 as set forth in this proposal that was received on August 3rd. So the total cost is $12,560. It will be separated out. The structural fee is $9,600. Roof valuation fee is $2,960.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Pass carried.
Resolution 2021-960 is release security for urban renewal parcel 4 in E811. The applicant is Catherine J. McDonough, care of John McGowan. And the bank check is for $18,300.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass carried.
Resolution 2021-961 is a budget modification and a purchase order increase for the planning department. This is for costs that were for engineering services. The costs were originally not to exceed $15,000. The planning department has determined that a need for additional funding exists, and the amount shall now not exceed $20,000 and shall be paid from the outside professional budget line in the fee account. And so we're increasing unreserved surplus by $5,000 and increase outside professional by $5,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass carried. Resolution 2021-962 is to appoint full-time labor in the Highway Department, Galen Grunwald. and that would be at an hourly rate of $18.40 for an annual salary of $38,289.26 on a 40-hour work week, effective retroactive to August 18th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 963 is to appoint full-time automotive equipment operator to the Highway Department, Michael Buffalino, and that's at a rate of $21.16 an hour, $24,024.45 annually at a 40-hour work week.
Second.
That would be effective August 29th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 964 is a resolution to establish lead bank, shared time and town attorney for a town attorney employee. That
Second.
would be retroactive to August 15th.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, passed and carried. 965 is extension of license agreement for testing Deepwater Wind South Fork LLC. This was discussed at the recent work session and would just allow for some preliminary review and fact gathering to better inform a possible further easement along the Long Island Railroad.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Passed and carried. 966, accept 2020 comprehensive annual financial report and audit, which was a really great report, clean slate, and everything looks good.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Passed and carried. 2021, 967 is to retain counsel in White Sands Seaview at Amagansett 2021. And we did have a caller who questioned one of the resolves. The first resolve says to retain special counsel to assist the appellate division on appeal of the above entitled actions. John, is there?
Yeah, if you could, if we could add both to the last whereas and the first resolve, just and the Court of Appeals, because the bulk of this is related to the appellate division work. But he did file a request for
Do I have a second as amended?
A second as amended for the whereas and the resolve clause.
We're adding Court of Appeals in both those paragraphs. All in favor? Aye. Passed and carried. Resolution 2021-968 is to pay minor deductible for Jimmy Degenerate, and that is in the amount of $1,292.97.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, passed and carried. 969 is to pay minor deductible for Lisa Brown, and that is an amount of $25,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 970 is to authorize payments past due invoices for Verizon. This would be for, let's say, an amount of $53.75, February 23rd, 2020 invoice, $50.65, August 23rd, 2020, for a total not to exceed $104.40.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Passed and carried. 971 is to increase purchase order revised agreement for services and budget modification. And this is for retaining Rock Smith, town's auditing firm. That is to move $5,000, and that's increased to $95,000, and moving $5,000 from conferences and dues to outside professional in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 972 is to amend resolution 2021-242. That is to increase appropriated surplus in the amount of $85,000 and increase outside professional in the same amount. And this is pursuant to the resolution 2021-242. The town board retained Honorable Howard A. Levine and Alan Goldberg, the firm of Whiteman and Osman Hanna, LLP, to assist in the town, and Mike Rycon, Esquire, an appeal decision of the New York State Appellate Division in the matter of Seaview Amagansett Limited et al. Versus trustees freehold of commonality in town of East Hampton.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Passed and carried. 973 is compensation payout for Rebecca Hanson. Resolve the finance office authorized issue check through payroll to appropriate budget amount for 39.75 hours at a rate of $55.28 per hour, for a gross total of $2,197.72, and it's payout for earned compensatory time. All in favor? Aye. Passed and carried. 974 is a payout upon retirement. Kevin Ahern. Resolved that the finance office is to authorize check to payroll from the appropriate payroll account for vacation time in the amount of $11,822.46. Sick time in the amount of $14,436.21. And longevity in the amount of $1,516.67 for a gross total of $27,775.34. Kevin Ahern, as final payout. Kevin, we thank you very much for your service to the town and hope you enjoy your retirement.
You will be missed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 975 is budget modification for the Ordinance Enforcement Department, full-time salaries in the amount of $30,000 to overtime in the amount of $30,000.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, passed and carried. 2021-976 is a resolution, budget modification, Finance Department, and that is to move from health insurance buyback in the amount of $2,500 to overtime in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 2021-977 is a budget modification for the Natural Resources Department, and this is to reallocate funds to telephone and overtime lines, and that is moving from travel in the amount of $150 to $150 to overtime, and moving from travel to telephones in the amount of $104.40.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Passed and carried. 978 is to authorize CPF water quality contribution to the Peconic Estuary Program, whereas the Peconic Estuary Program partnership made the presentation April 4th, 2021 to town board seeking the community preservation water quality funds as matched to an EPA federal contribution. And whereas the town of East Hampton will share for 2021 the amount of $99,050. And this would have to be in compliance with the town's memorandum of understanding, as well as a yearly report on water quality initiatives and projects that demonstrate how the town's East Hampton's contribution to PEP is utilized, whereas this report and associated documentation from PEP will be utilized by the town's auditing firm that is hired each year as per town law 64E12. Now therefore be it resolved that the board authorizes the issuance of $99,050 for the calendar year of 2021, subject to a signed memorandum of understanding, and that the water quality budget line be used for this payment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 979 is a payment of 2020 time entries on 2021 invoice Goldstein, Rycon, and Houghton, PC, and that is in the amount of $11,250. Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Passed and carried. 980 is to authorize publication. Whereas town board of East Hampton would like to further publicize the East Hampton's in the East Hampton Star and East Hampton Press, a series of public workshops designed to identify and examine key issues related to the East Hampton Airport and to gauge public opinion on the future of the airport to inform a future board decision. Whereas 2 workshops will be held in person on September 9th at LTV Studios in Wainscott, and on September 13th at the Montauk Playhouse, and 2 on Zoom, September 13th, and on September 20th, all at 7 p.m. Therefore, be it resolved, town board hereby authorizes 4 quarter-page newspaper ads to be published in the August 26th and September 2nd issues of the East Hampton Star and the East Hampton Press. Be it further resolved that the payment of such publication costs shall be paid to the appropriate budget line, not to exceed $2,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. Are there any other resolutions to offer at this time? No.
I make a motion that we go into exec session for advice of counsel.
at,
Personnel.
1:15. We also have personnel issues to discuss.
And for personnel in a department?
We have the department.
Yeah, it's code.
Code, for code enforcement.
Any other items? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
1:15.
Okay.
Great.
Passed and carried. 1:15. Passed and carried. Be safe, everyone. Stay well. Remember, there's a resurgence of COVID. Get yourself vaccinated. If you're not already vaccinated, please wear a mask when you're indoors with others. Thank you.